Are you a podcaster looking for new ideas on how to grow your show? Are you a woman entrepreneur who's been thinking about starting a podcast but isn't really sure how to get started? Are you a speaker and want to guest on more podcasts? If you said yes to any of those questions, you are in the right place. Welcome to Podcast Your Story. I'm your host, Julie Marty-Pearson, and this is the podcast where we amplify women's voices in podcasting. I'm sharing my story as a podcaster, as a podcast guest, and as a mentor who helps other women start their own shows and become awesome podcast guests. I want to give a special shout out to my community members who help support this show, keep it going and growing every day. Much love to my Podcast Your Story community members and all they do to help me and others share women's voices and inspire more women to share their stories through podcasting. I hope you enjoy this episode of Podcast Your Story. I am very happy to welcome to the podcast my guest, Tracie Root. Tracie, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And I am super excited to publish this episode with Tracie. I have been coaching, helping Tracie to get her podcast started and launched. So I wanted to bring her here so all of you could hear her story of what is her podcast about? Why did she decide to start it now? And how has this process been for her? So let's start first, Tracie. Have you tell the listeners a little bit about you and your business?
I've been a coach for going on 12 years. And I started off in like a network marketing health coaching thing. Those are pretty common out there in the world now. But at the time, I didn't know anything about it. And I didn't know anything about coaching. So that was a great way for me to understand to get what I needed out of this coaching agreement, which was I needed some real health support. And it taught me what coaching was and how I really had been doing it all along, helping people manage change as the oldest daughter of a divorced family, in school, as a leader in the marching band, like all of these things I can go back now and relate. I was always helping people manage and navigate change. So coaching really was the perfect fit for me. The health part of health coaching was not really something I was super excited about. I just needed it. But what it gave me was an opportunity to understand the mindset stuff and the motivation and structure underneath any kind of coaching, learning how to go after what you want. And so I took those learnings and I started to apply them to more life coaching work. And also as my business became stable in that way outside of health coaching. And I started to grow it, helping people with their businesses, specifically early stage entrepreneurs who were doing things that I had also done, like leaving corporate to work for themselves. And in about 2018, I decided I wanted to start doing in-person group activities. I wanted to do a vision board workshop. I wanted to bring groups of people together because to be honest, I didn't have a lot of friends. And I wanted to bring people together because I knew that it would be fun. And I knew that connecting people in a supportive way was a way to help them be more likely to achieve those goals that they had in mind. So I started doing that, and it was really a challenge here. I live in Santa Cruz, California. It was really a challenge to find a place to have these events that I had in mind. My corporate background that I had left was in interior design and project management. So I said to myself, if I can't find a place that is suitable, that I can afford, that, has what I need, I'll make my own. Because I had spent 17 years in corporate creating spaces for other companies, I'd create one for myself. So the learnings of going through all of that was really interesting and super fulfilling, and finally came to fruition in October of 2019, which of course was right before lockdown happened and we weren't doing anything in person anymore. So this
Right.
dream of having this in-person event space had to be shelved. And in a sense, it wasn't that the dream was shelved, is that it immediately started to transform from I want to have things in a room to what's the whole point? The point is to connect people, to build community. And honestly, I remember very clearly that my kid's last day at school was Friday, the 13th of March, 2020. And on that Monday, we were all at home and going, okay, what do we do? And I said to the people that I was connected to through Facebook and et cetera, I said, I don't know what we're doing, but let's just get on Zoom and we'll start figuring it out. And that was the first real co working session on Zoom of the Gather community that we've been doing every week since 4.5 years later. You can connect not only to people who live near you, but to people all over the globe. And that's what we've done. We've built an entire community of women leaders and entrepreneurs called the Gather community. And we've been doing co-working, networking, multi-speaker events, workshops. And I love hosting these events because my real superpower is connecting people and like hearing what they need and knowing someone else and let's mush them together. And so as a speaker, as a event facilitator, my constant thriving on camera and speaking with people was the idea of podcasting was always in the back of my mind, but I knew that I was already building something that needed my attention. So
Right.
once the Gather community started to hit a rhythm, I started working a little more on my coaching business again. And that really took shape last year in the form of my first retreat and a year-long mastermind program, a retreat program that we're running now. So that's happening now too. And I said, okay, that's figured out and this is figured out. And let's start the podcast because my goal is to reach more people so that I can connect more people. And I figured it was the natural evolution of how to reach people, especially when my time is like I can only go to so many networking meetings and still
Same.
run the business. I mean, I would love it
Yep.
if I could just do that all the time and actually be physically or virtually in the same room with people. But I figured that the podcast was a way for me to talk about what we do, bring more people potentially to the Gather community, bring more people potentially to my programs and retreats, and then be able to put those people all together even more so. And now it's time to try to reach a wider audience to be able to share it with more people.
I love that. And I think, like, hearing you talk and all of the different things, it made me think of it's all about the timing. Sometimes we want things when we want them and it's not the right time. Or sometimes things are changing and evolving and realize, oh, this is the right time for this. No wonder this is all happening the way it's happening. And so it
Yeah.
really sounds like your evolution as a business owner, an entrepreneur, a coach, and now podcaster has all just been about when it was right for it to happen.
Yeah. I mean, the pandemic really taught us a lot about that you don't know what the future holds. How could you possibly know how something's going to turn out? Because
Right.
literally the biggest mystery, oh, a global pandemic, like it wasn't on anyone's bingo card, as we say. So, you know, if you're in tune with the mission of what you're trying to create and who you're trying to serve and what they're going to get out of it and how you can, as a coach, the idea of one-on-one coaching is great. Like it's super immersive and you get everything if you find the right mentor, you can
Right.
really get a lot unpacked and done and handled. But if you are trying to do everything at once and are spread too thin, then nothing really gets the attention that it needs. And so as a coach, I can help people one on one, but I love working with groups because not only do they learn from me, they learn from each other to really be the meaty conversation, transformational situation that it has the potential of being. Then if my attention was split in too many pieces, then no one's getting the attention they deserve. And so
Right.
by having the podcast now, where the Gather community is relatively like my role in Gather community now, or at least my goal job is that it runs itself with the team and the support that we have behind it. And my job is to talk to people, connect our members, to host events, to be that energetic face of the activity. And then from a coaching standpoint, it's the same thing. I want to have enough of an impact to reach multiple people, which is why I prefer doing group programs and retreats, because it's immersive, yet it's not one person at a time. As all of
Right.
us coaches, we just want to have the greatest impact that we can have. And doing
Right.
it with groups and reaching a larger audience is the way to do that. And the podcast is, like you said, just the natural evolution. As I can spend time on it, which it's taken a little time to get my feet under me for sure.
I always feel a little imbalanced. What have
About
I got done and what do I still need to do?
right? But I don't feel like I'm leaving anything else in my company unsupported by
Right.
focusing on learning all of this
Right.
and by having these interviews. And I just love interviewing people. I mean, I love telling my stories and I got a bazillion of them, but I love interviewing people and really understanding how they're serving the world so that I can help
Right.
them reach more people.
Well, and I think what you said is important because there are a lot of obstacles and hurdles that people are afraid of or get stopped by when wanting to start a podcast. And one of them
Yeah.
is time. How
Yeah.
much time is this going to take me? How much time do I have to devote to it on a regular basis? Am I going to enjoy it? Because like you, I love interviewing. This has always been facilitating interviewing. It's just what I do. But for some people, that's really hard. I have some friends who have been like doing one with guests. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to say or ask. So a lot of that comes into when we start to think about starting a podcast is what are the hurdles? What are the things that are going to be like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people feel that way about editing. And Tracie and I were just talking about some of the issues she was having with Descript, and no software is
Figuring it out.
perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I always think launching takes longer than people expect it to, just because there is a lot of behind the scenes work that you have to do, a lot of little
Yeah.
boxes to check off. But then that's done and you don't have to do it again. And it can be a much easier, consistent process for you. So going back to when you and I first met and started the coaching process of starting
Yeah.
your podcast, what were some of the hurdles or difficulties you faced in terms of what is this going to be about? What am I going to call it? What do I want the image to be like audio wise, but also visually with my covers? What in that part of the process did you enjoy the most? Was most difficult? What did that feel like?
Yeah. I actually had the idea for it didn't end up being the actual title, but the idea for the podcast topic collection at the gym one day. I was listening to the Mel Robbins podcast, who I absolutely adore. And she said something she says all the time, which is something like you're one decision away from your next life or something to that effect. I've been teaching about being bold in your life and in your business and in your sales, and being bold and taking bold action is like my thing for the last couple of years. And so all of a sudden she said something bold stuck in my head. And I had this like light bulb moment for real. I was literally sitting there doing some abs and I got up and I walked over to the desk at the gym and I was like, do you have a piece of scratch paper and a pen I could borrow? Because I just was thinking about something and I really need to write it down. This is it. This is that paper where I realized that the whole point was going to be inviting people to talk about the bold decisions that change the trajectory of their life. And I came up with 12 right there in 1 minute for myself. And of course, I know that entrepreneurs, this is what happens to us. We come up with ideas, we
Right.
make decisions. These decisions are bold decisions because entrepreneur ain't for sissies and act on them.
Right.
Everyone has something, if not 20 somethings, that they could point at that really made a difference for them, whether it was as a child or in high school or in creating their business or even in reinventing themselves. So it was really, that's the idea. I don't know what I want to call it. I went through 20 names, but that was the main idea. And that was, I think, what started me really rolling this year. I knew I wanted to get started towards the end of 2024. And with the idea in mind that I was finally ready, obviously I knew of you through other people who are also relaunching / getting support with their podcasts. And we had met and you're awesome. So I was like, I'm going to work with Julie because she clearly knows what she's doing and she's very nice and is going to be patient with me and I'm going to figure this out. But to be able to, what from our first meeting, you're like, I have this checklist for you and this is, and we'll do this and we'll meet this many times over this period of time and everything. And it just was so like, it all made sense, which was so nice because you don't know what you don't know until you get started. And what was
Right.
great was once I got started, I had a list. So it made it easy. And then I would say that the obstacle at that point was managing myself, just my own time. I think we rescheduled the first call twice, if I remember right, because I hadn't spent the time on it yet. I wasn't ready. I was in the middle of other things.
Right.
And once we had that first meeting, I think we were like, okay, let's based on that, this time frame seems to make sense. And of course, then the second call, I think we postponed once and we
Yeah.
changed that whole time frame. But I understood kind of the implications of my own actions and of the decisions that we'd made and how we changed them, the implications of that. And it was all fine. So I wasn't worried about it. And it allowed me a little flexibility to know that it was all going to still be great.
Right.
Yeah. It's okay that we delayed a week or 2 weeks or whatever it was because it's going to be perfect whenever it is. And to have someone else with you, there's resources and there's YouTube videos. But when you have someone who's been there and there's nothing like having your own coach. I mean, as a coach, clearly, I know I'm not blowing anyone's mind here that coaches need coaches, but it's so true. Because if I had just
Right.
been following some other thing, I don't think that I would be ready to launch. I think
Right.
that those momentary check-ins with you, the understanding that, wow, I did actually get through this list. And then I think we were looking at it recently. I'm like, oh, I did that. I didn't like, I hadn't gone back and marked it off, but it was natural progression to the end of the list. So that was
Right.
very empowering to know that through our conversations and the natural progression of just understanding what it takes to put a show out, which in the Gather community,
Right.
we do summits that are on YouTube and all of that. So that wasn't new. It's just new software and a new
Right.
format. And so
Right.
it was a good natural progression. Yeah, I think that those obstacles of just getting myself like in process going,
Right.
seeing it off, was
And getting
really
out of your own way
getting out of my own way,
sometimes.
which is story as old as time for everyone who's trying to create something.
Books, whatever it is, I can be the worst procrastinator and I do it to myself. But I
I
also
know what
think
it
what you
is.
were
Procrastination is
well,
all about not really wanting to do it. So you have to
yeah.
figure out what it is that's stopping you and
Right.
just, oh no, that's not true. I do want to do this. So let's go. And then you get going.
Exactly. And then also I think what you said about coaching is really important. And as both of us are coaches, we're not saying this just because we want you to have us be your coach. It's true that you need a coach. There are things I would never say I know how to do everything. No, I'm constantly learning from the coaches I work with, the coaches I help launch, the coaches I meet, networking, as well
Right.
as my own coaches. And it's really about that connection and, oh, that's how you do it. That makes it easier. Why reinvent the wheel when it's already working? But also, I think what I've found since my coaching has now focused on podcasting is it's a lot of it is about accountability,
Mm-hmm.
is having that person that is like the little nudge that says, hey, have you done this? You said you do it by today. And it's just, I think that I've had that experience myself with a coach. It was like, okay, you're going to keep moving me forward again because we can get in our own way and we need that push. But I think it's also nice to know you have someone to go to ask the little questions. Sometimes I find this isn't working, but who am I going to ask how it works? Like you
Right.
said, YouTube videos, whatever, but it only gets you so far. And you want that hands-on experience and that
Yeah.
connection with someone that is going to get you to your end result.
Yeah, one of the things when I'm teaching my whole like bold framework is really about the power and the need to not only ask for help, but to accept it. So to be able to have someone to ask the question of, we keep ourselves from even asking the questions when we know we're too embarrassed to even admit. It's all about
Right.
embarrassment and fear and judgment and shame and all those
Mhm.
things. When you live the life of asking for help and taking that help, then life's a lot easier. That's why coaches can work with coaches and why we're coachable, because we have that real understanding of that there's real value there. It's not just because we don't know what to do. It's that I don't have to figure this out by myself.
And it's funny because I think one of the reasons I love podcasting so much is the community I've found within it. Having a community of people to ask these questions, say, do you use this? Why is this not working? What am I doing wrong? You have someone to go to. And the coaching and the community are key for anything. Like nobody can achieve things in isolation. You need support, you need help. And ultimately, we're starting podcasts because we want to help others, right? We want to take our experience and the people we interview and help give people advice that's, oh, okay, now I'm not alone. I get it now.
And that's why I like coming to your podcast party,
Mm,
because I'm just understanding the community of podcasting because I haven't been one yet.
right.
Literally not launched as of today. So, like, I technically am not one yet, but I have had a chance to be in the room with a number of podcasters and just soaking up that information and being in that community gives me more confidence. Everyone's a beginner in the beginning. And it's okay to be a beginner because we don't expect people to be perfect ever,
Right.
especially when they've never done it before. So
Right.
it's a great way for me to, because I've been in a lot of communities and I've been with lots of women entrepreneurs, especially people in business, but I've never really, there's only a handful of people who do things the way I do them, specifically the Gather community. And so to be in a room of a bunch of people who are podcasting, that is something that I haven't done yet. I get so much out of just soaking up the vibes and little comments and stuff. So yeah, super true.
Right.
Community's everything.
And that's something I, as a person and a coach, I say I'm sharing stories, but it really is about the community you're creating or the community you're finding or
Right.
whatever that may be. And since I started my business after COVID, I really realized how important that community is because I've been connected to people all over the world that I would have never met if I hadn't stepped into the roles as a coach, as a podcaster I have. But I would also say that you podcasting is great, but there's still a connection of being in person with people that you cannot replace. So I want people to realize podcasting is great, but it still has its limitations. It gives us
Well,
a
it's a
space to it's a
piece
piece of
of
the
the bigger
puzzle.
picture.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, if you think of regular broadcasting, right? Television shows and all of that, the shows that we want to know those people are real people. And a
Right.
lot of the ways that they do that is by live performances, live audiences, all of that stuff.
Mm,
And so if we're podcasting and we don't have a live audience or the potential for one, unless you're a
right.
fabulous queen of Podfest like you,
Streaming it or something.
so
Right.
for me, it's a piece of building people up for the Gather community where it's a lot more live and multiple people, crowds of people. For me, from a coaching standpoint, we might do our group stuff online, but those retreats that we're putting together. And then also we're meeting, people are looking for what groups are you a part of? What's in the
Right.
area near you? And it gives us a chance to be
Right.
like, oh, hey, you're in Texas. Oh, you got to meet my friend Elaine, who's also in
Yes.
Texas by you. And so it's again that natural connection
Yep.
emphasis that even when
And
it's a
I
single person, we can grow the community around them.
absolutely, because I think what's great about podcasting is it can be a very intimate introduction to someone who doesn't know you and has ever heard of you and doesn't know what you do. And that is because audio is so connecting. I don't think people realize sometimes that the reason we connect with music, the reason we connect with radio shows or we connect with anything like that is because it's me and you talking to each other. Even though you can't say anything as a listener, you feel as though you've had these conversations with the people you're listening to. And because of that's why podcasting has grown so much, but also it's made people realize how powerful audio is. And that's why audiobooks are even more popular than they used to be. And so there's so many ways that podcasting can impact your life and your business with just a little piece of yourself.
You could even take it like a little in the woo direction and say that reading something on a page versus listening to someone say that, what's the difference? The
Right.
breath, the tone, the part that comes from the human soul.
Experience.
Yeah, the part
Well,
that comes from the human who's reading it is
right.
added to that. You can
Yep.
read something, but to have someone say it with emotion and really express their feelings about it
Yep.
just by the way they say the words, it's different. It makes a big difference.
Yep. And it's so funny because this will probably come out right after, but at PodFest, I will be on a panel of women podcasters talking about the importance of storytelling.
Yeah.
And my piece is about how, interviewing and talking in front of people and teaching, those are all natural skills of mine. But the piece that I struggle more with as a podcaster and a speaker is sharing my more personal stories and the emotion behind them. I'm someone that has never been great at the emotional piece of things. And so there's a lot of ways that podcasting allows you to express yourself, to share yourself, and connect with people that you can't do with a social media post or a reel or an email. And so there are so many options within the world of being a coach and an entrepreneur, but there's a reason people come to podcasting and come back to it and keep growing it is because of that intimate connection and that way to find people that you wouldn't have met otherwise.
So when I'm teaching goal setting, we talk about, okay, you have it in your mind, now write it down on paper. And now if you take it from there and you say it out loud, like now it's real. That's what happened with Gather when I had obsessed about it for a year. But when I said it out loud to someone else, I was like, oh my gosh, I just said that out loud. Now it's real. Right. And like someone else knows. But the fact that I had said it it didn't make me scared. It made me excited. It made me that much more obsessed with the idea of moving forward with it and the progression to get it out with your voice matters.
Absolutely, because your voice matters and your story matters. The evolution of getting here and getting ready to launch, as you get ready to hit that button of publish or schedule an episode launching over the next week or two, what are you feeling now as you're on this kind of precipice of actually putting it out to the world?
I mean, I would say right now what I'm feeling is I'm still trying to just manage this technology because I'm struggling a little bit with just functionality of getting the editing completed and stuff, but it's very exciting. I'm tech savvy, and so I'm learning things as I go, and it's going okay. I am really looking forward to it coming out, but really I'm looking forward to getting to continue to interview people and talk about this subject and share that. I've been speaking and doing shows, for lack of a better term, for a long time now. So it's very second nature and actually my area of that's fun for me. And for a lot of people, it's scary, but it's not scary. How I'm feeling is I'm excited. I'm looking forward to getting it done and having it done so I can press publish. That would be great. And knowing that every time I work through one of the files that becomes an episode, it's getting easier and easier. And by this time, a couple of months from now, I'm going to be like, old hat. It's easy. I don't have to worry. Hopefully that'll be the case. And I mean, there's always also like the structure that I've put together, which for me is going to be one interview episode and one solo episode a month. And that's what I chose for me because as a coach, I feel like I am I really feel like it's important for me to do solo episodes because people are working with me as a coach.
Absolutely.
But I just love doing the interview episodes.
Yeah.
So I have to balance the two, and hopefully I'll be structured for myself enough to be able to do that as planned. But you know what?
Right.
Changing things if it doesn't feel right anymore. So that's okay too.
Right. And I think all of that is the power of podcasting, because it's all up to you. You get to decide, do I only want to do solo? Do I only want to do interview? Do I want to do both? Do I want to do live? Do I want to do YouTube? It's overwhelming because there are so many options, but there's the power in that you get to have control over it. You get to decide, I'm going to do 2 a month, and that's what works for me. I'm going to do 1 every day, 5 minute every day, whatever that feels right to you. And like you said, and then if you do it and it doesn't feel right, or you don't feel like it's connecting the way you want to, you shift. And that's the great thing about podcasting. Nothing is set in stone. It can change at any time. And so I'm so excited to be here at this point with you and to see you ready to launch it out in the world. So tell everyone who is listening where to find the podcast and to find you and to hit that subscribe button.
Absolutely. The podcast is called Bold and Brilliant with Tracie Root, or the Bold and Brilliant podcast, depending on which graphic you use to work on that. But if you look for it, Bold and Brilliant, you can't miss it. You'll see a picture of me in my sparkly jacket, and it's all pink all the time. And you can find it on all of the standard players. I personally, as a non-Apple girl, I use Podcast Addict. That's where mine are, and it's on there. It's very exciting. My trailer's out, but it's on Apple and it's on all the things. So you can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. I am also going to have it on YouTube. So you can also find that there. And probably the best place to find, obviously not your podcast player, but the YouTube part and our webpage dedicated to the podcast, will be through my links page, which is tracieroot.com/links. And there'll be
And all of her links will be in the show notes of this episode. And I'm sure I'll be posting it lots and lots for her. But yeah, I think it's such an exciting point to be at, where you feel the timing is right. There's such a kind of sense of, oh, okay, this is working out the way it was supposed to. And it's all happening when it was supposed to.
Such a natural evolution that it makes sense. So very exciting.
So before we go, I do want to mention, you mentioned you do retreats, and I know you're going to be doing more this year. Can you talk a little bit about why you do the retreats and what that looks like?
Sure. Yeah. So I decided, so as I mentioned, as I was really building the Gather community, I let the coaching part of my business kind of hang out over there. I often used to say that the Gather community was my right hand. It was very organized and strong and coordinated. And over here was my coaching, and my left hand was a little weak and flaily. So we're working on our strength over there. So we worked on that. And early last year, I realized that after all these years in the Gather community, people kept asking me, are you going to go back in person? And I'm like, no, I can't go back in person for this community that has people all over North America and into Europe, because that's not fair to people in Pennsylvania and Texas and Canada and England.
Right.
So how can I do something in person? Because we all love that still too, and have it make sense. And so I decided that an immersive moment in time, or weekend or week or whatever, how long that period of time is, what made sense. It would allow people in the Gather community from all over to plan for something, as opposed to me just doing like a workshop on a weekend.
Right.
And that I could use that, because that immersive, I keep using that word, but it's just such the right explainer, right? The experience of being together, like living in this, basically we rented an Airbnb and lived in the same house for 4 days. That experience, we know from Who's Gen X, right?
That there's a reason the real world worked.
That's
for sure.
right. The reason why all that happened, it's still real. So so I realized that I wanted to do retreats. I did our first retreat last September, and it was really just so awesome. It went well. They loved it. I loved doing it. Like, it was just fabulous. And so coming out of that, we said, so what we created coming out of that actually was a monthly mastermind and retreats program, because the retreat is great. Right. But we're not talking really about a vacation retreat. We're talking about a personal development, little professional development type of retreat. Right. So you can go to a hotel and have your own personal retreat anytime you want. But if I'm going to be facilitating it, we're going to be talking about how to be bold and how to get out of your comfort zone and make yourself a bigger and brighter version of yourself. So a mastermind with those retreats really works well because it gives us a monthly checkpoint over the course of several months. And then we come together. Our first one this year will be in March, and settle in and turn off the outside and already have this momentum going to this moment in time where we can say, okay, since December, January, February, March, now we're here in person together. Let's really kind of sit in that thought, sit in those dreams, and formulate what we're going to do with them after we leave here. And by being able to turn off the checklist and the meetings and the to-dos of home, and maybe it's not work related, maybe it's family related and kids or running
Right.
around.
Yeah.
Be able to really sit in that space of your own thoughts and your own
Yes.
rest in order
Yes.
to run again. That's the real meaning behind that retreat. I know what I'm doing. And in fact, the last one we had, one of the gals that we started on Thursday, kind of midday. By that night, she already had this giant epiphany of this new membership she was going to create. She was like all fired up about it all weekend long. And it's just that happened quickly. But it was so fun to watch the full weekend.
Right.
Well, it really created this whole new revenue stream in her business and this whole new kind of mission.
Wow.
That was so exciting to see and get to be a part of. And that's what we're doing retreats for.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think what you said is so true. I've been in experiences of retreat where there's that power of being together and that dedicated time and space, and your other life is not affecting it. But then when you leave it, you lose that. So
Right.
that's what the online masterminding is for, is to keep your momentum going. That was like, oh, there is such a power and just a different feeling to be physically in the room with people, right? And so I just want people to push yourself to do those in-person things, because it's going to be different than anything else you do, but it's also going to have a very big impact on you because of being in the same space and learning together, helping each other, learning from each other. And so I just wanted you to share about your retreats because it's a powerful aspect to helping people.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you asking. And I absolutely 100% agree. When I was first starting coaching, it was a network marketing type of thing. And we had conferences and we'd have leadership conference and national convention and all of that. And those were the moments that kept you going, that drove you
Right.
year over year. And that all ended for me finally at COVID, but really eased its way down before that. But because I kept wanting to go to the events, that's why it was still
Right.
around. I want to go see my friend. I want to
Right.
think about what I want and how I'm going to revamp or re-emphasize certain things that are important to me.
I think that was the first time we had met and we both realized, oh, we're tall, curly haired girls. And it's so funny because when I went to Podfest the first time, almost every person I saw that I already knew but was meeting the first time said, "Oh, I had no idea you were
You're
that
so
tall." You
tall.
realize we only see this box, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah, I get
so
that every time too.
getting to do fun things like going on adventures or traveling or even shopping and things like that, it's a different level of bonding that just gives us that energy, that renewal we need to keep going day after day in our business. Thank you, Tracie, so much for being here with me and talking very openly about your experience as a new podcaster and what got you to where you are. And as soon as you are done with this episode, everyone go check out Tracie's podcast and hit that subscribe button immediately. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Podcast Your Story. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. And if you got inspired to start your own podcast after hearing this episode, go to the link in the episode description and head to my website, juliemartypearson.com, and learn more about my podcast launch program. I have lots of options for everyone, from group programs to one-on-one to accountability and support, as well as my amazing community of fellow podcasters and podcast guests that you can become a part of today. Thanks again for listening. Sending love from your podcasting mentor.